teachers of Reddit, what was the best excuse for being late that turned out to be true? Told me he got pulled over by the cops for wobbly driving on his bike and they thought he was drunk. Turned out he was just dodging all the slugs on the street. Did he tell them he was sluggish? Literally today, child missed my first hour class. Note said car accident on the way to school and would be coming late. Kid comes for second hour, has pictures on his phone of the rollover accident. WTF. Kid, go home. Rest. Take care of yourself. Edit. I have another one, although this one happened to a classmate when we were in college training to be teachers. She missed a really important class, came for just the last 10 minutes or so because her neighbor knocked on her door while in active labor asking for help a little while before she was supposed to leave for class. Classmate walked back to neighbor's house with Brigo neighbor and delivered her baby in the living room while on the phone to 911. Paramedics came and mom and baby were fine, but classmate needed to go home and shower/change first because she was covered in blood. Not school related, but my mom was in an accident where her car rolled and got totaled on the way to work. She said the trooper who gave her a lift had never in their life had someone ask to be brought to work after a car accident. And my mom took a selfie with the trooper. She worked her whole shift. Her only complaint was her coffee spilled when the car flipped. No injuries at all. I was the student. My neighbor had a really social goat and she figured out how to escape her pen in order to come over and hang out. She escaped and followed me to the bus stop, and when the bus came, she tried to follow me onto it. I couldn't actually get on the bus without her being right behind me, so I had to get off, bring her home, and call my dad to bring me to school. Backquote, my neighbor had a really social goat is the best thing I've read today. Thank you, lol. In my hometown, if you walked into anywhere late and said the phrase, "Sorry, grain train," you were never challenged. It was extremely common for 50+ carriage trains to run through the middle of town. We have the same thing in my hometown except the bridge was up. That bridge is notorious for not following a schedule and always being up when you're in a hurry. Edit. Thanks for all the cake day wishes. Had no idea it was today. Woke up to 5k plus upvotes, which is insane because it's my most upvoted comment ever, lol. Also the town is Aalborg in Denmark. Not a teacher, but a friend said his house blew away. Apparently, tornado. May have been my house and took about a week off from school to help clean up my house. In high school I biked to class. One day I hit a rock and ate absolute shit. I obviously got to class late. Before I could say a word my teacher stopped class and said, "Thank you for finally joining us. Why are you so late?" I raised my heavily bloodied hands and elbows. It must have looked bad because she audibly gasped and rushed me to the school nurse, apologizing non-stop the entire way. Edit. My B. I'm not a teacher. Something similar happened to me one morning my junior, maybe sophomore year. I would walk down the street a couple houses, meet up with a friend, and we'd walk to the bus together in the mornings. One morning, we had an absolute monsoon of a thunderstorm all night the night before. I lived at my mom's in a heavily wooded area, so all the leaves on the ground were wet. I was running late and literally running down our driveway when I must have hit a huge wet leaf. I managed to tumble head over toe down the hill, over my backpack, and lose a shoe in the process. My friend heard me yell for help, helped me back to my house, and helped me get some new shoes so we wouldn't be late. I got to school via the bus and went to the nurse immediately. My whole thigh was bruised and bleeding in some spots. I was wearing jeans. Obligatory, not a teacher, but I'm an admin at a music school. I had a mom frantically call me and let me know her daughter would probably be late or miss their guitar lesson in a couple hours cause she couldn't find the kid. I was just kind of like, okay, well I will let her teacher know. Got another call about an hour later from the same mom. She found her kid, but apparently the daughter went to a friend's house and decided to dye her hair green. They lived pretty close by, so I did let them know they could still come in for their lesson. Mom said she would call me back and let me know in a minute or two. Never called back. Her daughter showed up for her lesson about 5 minutes late with this bright green coiffure. I gotta admit it looked rad as fuck, but also kind of a confusing thing to be an audience to the build up. Edit. Thank you for the award. It's my first one. D. Why was her hair green? I need to know. UK. A student couldn't submit an assignment on time as the Wi-Fi was down on the megabus. Standard, to be honest. I'm Pink, a fair-skinned student, age 10, went with a friend to the Holi festival at a nearby Hindu temple where she was covered with red powder and dyed bright red from head to toe. Her mother, another teacher at the school, had made her sit for hours in the bathtub to soak it off, but even after another round of early morning shower scrubbing, she arrived at school a pleasant shade of pink. Technically, she wasn't late, but she stayed in her mother's classroom until the bell rang. Teachers' kids basically live in a ruleless society or an extremely strict one. My best friend and I used to roller skate to school, and one day we both forgot to put our shoes in our backpacks. So we skated to the vice principal's office and got to skip first period to go home for shoes. We stopped at Taco Bell on the way back for breakfast because we figured we were already excused. I had a teacher in high school that would tell us if we are gonna be late to pick up coffee because 2 minutes late is the same as 15. Not me, but one of my good friends. She went to the Royal Military College of Canada, where they wear their uniforms and there are often tourists visiting the campus. Apparently, it was completely normal to be waylaid by tourists looking to have their photos taken with students in uniform that all they had to say when they walked in late was, "Tourists," and the professors would let it slide. She always wondered how many family photos she was actually in over her time spent there. My dad did something like this. Basically in the late 70s early 80s he would photobomb people at Disneyland. He always jokes that there are a bunch of people with his dumbus in the background. I had a chemistry professor show up about 15 minutes late, just when people were about to leave. He shows up and explains that he was just in a car accident. His car had been in a rollover and he still showed up. He said he was okay. He drove a Volvo. Had a sociology prof in college who was never late for anything. One day, we showed up for class and he wasn't there. After 5 minutes or so, we are reading the handbook to find out what level of professor he was, and found that he was an associate professor and entitled to 10 minutes wait. A few seconds before his time expired, a voice came from under his desk saying, "Today we are going to discuss withdrawn personalities." He conducted the whole class from under his desk. My car got hit by lightning. It did. In the school parking lot. Her tires were melted to the pavement. She had to go out and deal with the tow truck / call her parents / etc. It was pretty dramatic. Jesus. My car was hit by lightning twice and it never melted my tires. That feels like some fantastical threat from a mythical god. MTV paid me $50 to fill my backpack with cement and carry it around for the day. I accepted that excuse. Student later regretted it, as a replacement backpack and college textbooks far exceeded $50. But he got his moment of fame and I didn't penalize him for his tardy. Gotta live a little. Edit. Someone found a newspaper article on this. Turns out it was $200. He earned $100 for the first day and $100 when he returned the next day. I remembered $50, but it was 19 years ago. So I was right to believe him. He still lost all his stuff. Thanks cement, and I remember him telling me it wasn't worth it. And edit. Typo. What kind of idiot doesn't take his books out first? This was me as a student. My parents thought I get President's Day off, so they didn't wake me up. Just out of curiosity, how old were you at the time? A kid's apartment burned down overnight. He was a little late, but still came. Well, being at school would be better than on the streets. After 9/11, my small town high school received bomb threats every week for 2 months, and they decided to make us attend school on a Saturday. Myself and about 5 others showed up for our classes, and every teacher said something like, "I can't wait for the excuses on Monday." Most of the excuses were something along the lines of family plans or whatnot. But one kid was made read his dad's note aloud to the class because our first period teacher thought it was hilarious. In the most down south accent you can imagine, it went something like, "My son ain't too smart, but he knows you ain't supposed to get punished for someone else being a dumbass. Bought him a 6-pack, so he was drunk. Y'all can *CK off. I wish we had smartphones to record back then, so I could share it." Bear on the backyard. No access gate. Animal control had to trank it from the room and drag it through the house. Made the news. Got to retake the test I missed after sending her the news article. Still have access to the article? I kinda wanna see it too. I had a 6-year-old turn up late to her lesson and blurt out, "Sorry I was late. I had to color in a bunny." Seems fair. If I had money I would 100% give wholesome award. Me. My bus hit a bird and the whole windshield was cracked. We had to wait for another bus to pick us up. Story time. I was the only high schooler on our school bus one winter. The other detail important to this story is that we had the oldest model bus that wasn't in the best mechanical shape. It had one of those mechanically operated doors. It would shoot out a plume of black smoke every time it started, and just looked much less fancy than all the other buses the school had. Anyway, one winter it was so cold that the diesel engine stopped working. The bus driver said the cold made the diesel in the fuel lines gel up. I have no idea if that's accurate, but either way the bus wouldn't start. Fortunately we were only 5 miles from the school and all the kids had been picked up already. So they just radioed another, newer, bus to loop back around and pick us up. The bus driver had radioed the elementary school, but completely forgot to let the high school know. So I show up to class and the teacher asks why I was late. I said, the cold caused the fuel lines to gel up in the school bus, repeating exactly what the bus driver told us. But I was the only high schooler on that bus, so no other students were there to back up my story. The teacher didn't believe me, and instead of just calling the main office to verify my story, she mocked me in front of the whole class saying, "It's not possible for fuel to freeze in the cold," and everyone in the class agreed with her, saying that I was a bad liar and laughed at how dumb my story was. Ultimately the office did let her know about the bus after she tried giving me a detention, but the embarrassment is still there and she never gave me an apology. Open bracket. I was the student. When I was in college I opened my front door to see SWAT teams and the agents outside of my house. The one who looked at me was holding some kind of R. I went back inside. From what I heard, there was a multiple sting operation that happened around my town and my neighbor's place got raided. I missed half of my classes that day. Damn you, that's when you close the door and go back to the bed. Student here. I headed into school early to get some studying done in the library before my night class. I was one exit away when I was caught in a 3-car accident. Most of the expressway afterwards was gridlock with only one lane left open. I did eventually make it into my lab class 15 minutes late with a few scrapes and bruises. My professor's reaction was simply, "Oh, that was you. Was he the one who hit you?" We had an exam in my class and the teacher got a message from a student saying that he was going to be late because his car had a flat tire. The student was known to party. The teacher didn't think it could be true, so as a joke the teacher asked him to bring the tire back. He brought the flat tire back in the middle of the exam. Needless to say, the professor didn't expect that. That student had been partying. Drives to school, takes off tire, punctures it, and bobs your Auntie Mary. Not a teacher, but I was hit by a car on my bike to uni and my prof was more than understanding as to why I was late. One of my friends was training for cross country on a weekend once, and she was hit by a pickup truck that ran a stop sign. She flew over the top of it and broke both of her kneecaps. The pickup truck drove off. She said she can't remember any of the events that happened immediately afterwards, but the police report said that a bystander pulled over to help, and when they asked if she was alright, she just kept repeating a bunch of letters and numbers over and over, not even saying anything else except JHP 887, JHP 887, JHP 887, JHP 887, just constantly saying it like she was in some manic state. Eventually, after the police had already been called, the dude who pulled over to help realized that those were the license plate numbers and wrote them down. There was no security footage of it, and her being able to glance at the plates was the only reason they were able to track down the truck that hit her. To this day, that is the single most badass thing she's ever done. I can't imagine flying over the top of a truck. and having enough mental capacity in that moment to look at the license plate and memorize it while having two knees that don't have functioning kneecaps. Edit. I wish there was a silver lining in this story, but she had to have tons of surgery and to this day has some bad knees and can't really run like she used to. Not to mention the guy they tracked down didn't have any insurance and was just an elderly man who had pretty severe of dementia and panicked after hitting her, so they didn't even press charges. I had a teacher who showed up about halfway through the class. Apparently her car had slid, intense snowstorm the night before, and she had walked the last mile or so. That's dedication to students. Flock of wild turkeys in the road. Not always school, but this happened more than once in my life. For those of you who have never found yourselves in this situation, there is no way out of it. Wild turkeys will move when they damn well decide to do so, and only then. Never been in the situation, but I've met some wild turkeys they